Hello everyone, welcome to my Move Back to Nigeria series where we focus on people who've moved back and the businesses that they're building.
Hi everyone, I'm Maxwell Kalu, founder of African Warriors Fighting Championship, and thank you for having me today.
I'm excited to be here with you, Maxwell. So first, when did you move back to Nigeria?
So I moved back. It feels like it's been a long process of moving back, but I properly moved back January 2021.
But when did you start preparing to move back?
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. It took me a few years to do that. So I was coming back for long stints, come back for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. But then, yeah, start of this year, 2021, I did the full scale move back.
Okay, very exciting. So what made you move back to Nigeria though?
What made me move back? Just the opportunity here. So primarily African Warriors, my business, which I'm sure we'll talk more about.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was time. With African Warriors, founded it a few years ago, and we were just progressing nicely, and it just felt that I needed to be on ground. And then just more generally, I just think there's so many opportunities here to tap into. And I would find myself coming from London and sort of cramming all of my meetings into how many weeks or months. And I was just like, there's so much value to be had in being here full time.
Yeah.
So that's what pushed me to make the move.
Okay, it makes perfect sense. So can you tell us more about African Warriors?
Yes. So African Warriors Fighting Championship, we are building the African UFC featuring traditional combat sports.
Wow.
So Dambe, which is a form of boxing native to northern Nigeria, and wrestling, which is practiced all around Nigeria in many different forms, known by many different names. So our thing is, we are trying to raise standards in this space, and we are trying to put this on TVs across Nigeria, across the world, let anybody who is a fan of combat sports be able to tap in and watch the best combat sports content coming out of Nigeria.
So one of the reasons I asked Maxwell for an interview is that I saw all the work that you've been doing on Vice, BBC, Al Jazeera. Everybody's been covering your African Warriors, and I think that's amazing that you're uplifting a traditional Nigerian or African sport, and now letting the world know about it.
Thank you.
So how are you though? Let's be real. You are Igbo, and a lot of lot of the sport you're talking about, Gambe, is from the north. So how was it going to the north and recruiting fighters? Did they feel somehow? Or?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think that's even on a returnee level. I think that's one of the biggest things I found. Right, that tribe. I grew up in London, grew up in the UK, born and bred in the UK. Always knew I was Nigerian, always knew I was Igbo, that went without saying. But you really realize the weight of that in Nigeria in terms of what your tribe means. So especially in a sport in a business like mine, where we are working with grassroots communities to build a sport. And Dambe, as you said, is a northern Hausa sport. It's been practiced by Hausa people for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So in me coming as a founder, and then my team behind me, there was definitely an element of people working out, these people are outsiders to a level.
Yeah.
But
then you're not even northerner.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we were able to build trust. We were able to show that, look, we have the best interests of the community at heart. We are doing this to try and provide more opportunities to your boys, ultimately, to your athletes, your young men, to the communities that surround these sports. Yeah. And we've been welcomed with open arms. So there was definitely a period of understanding and of sort of just, I guess, assuaging any concerns. But we've been able to do it. And part of it is we're working hand in hand with these communities. It's not us and them, it's us together. So we have people from various parts of the north on our team. A big part of what we do is working with these communities, understanding, but ultimately they're the custodians of this sport. So it's not a case of us just going in, telling them what's going on. It's learning. It's a two-way conversation. And luckily we've made great progress with that. But it took some time, and it took long yards. It took going to various parts of the country, going to various parts of the north, going, okay, who's the Alhaji here? Okay, let's go and speak to this man. It's just putting all those dots together.
And finding the exact order, because how you speak to a Nigerian is everything. We don't realize that when we're overseas, like, but how you approach someone, it literally determines everything.
Totally. And it's, and then there's so many things at play. So it's exactly how you speak, how you engage. Then, okay, this person's older than you. And they're just at any given point, at any given interaction, there's just so many layers. And then equally how you're seen. So I come here and I'm speaking with this accent. Although I'm of the soil, I consider myself a Nigerian and very much a Nigerian.
We are Nigerian and we are of the soil.
Yeah, no, but it's, there's a difference. There's a marked difference.
There's a little difference.
You know what I mean? Like to many Nigerians, I sound more like a white Englishman than I do like a Nigerian.
Yeah.
Although I can speak small pidgin, you know, but you know, so it's just about understanding that and being aware of that.
I spoke to you before and you talked about being modest and like the skills that you needed to build when you came back. And you said one of that was modesty and also listening to people around you. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. I think people can make the mistake of coming back saying, you know, I have all of this experience working in New York or in London or wherever you come from. And nobody cares. Don't get me wrong. There are things from your experience outside of Nigeria that I think make you better placed to sort of recognize certain things, see certain opportunities, but equally it can put you at a disadvantage. You have blind spots, you have things that you don't understand. And I just found that a really important thing for me was just listening. And it manifested in my team, in my business quite a few times where not only listening, but I had to go beyond listening. It had to extend to empowering people to feel like they can contribute and you will listen. We had quite a few issues or something would happen and then somebody would say, I knew that would happen. And he used to frustrate me like, okay, you knew this would happen. Why didn't you say anything? You be your guy now. You said, do this, so I did it.
Exactly.
And it was a real learning curve for me in that I was like, at first I was like, I don't understand, are people taking the piss out of me here? Like, what's going on? But it wasn't about me, it was more about just what you said about how you speak with people, how you engage with people, where people are like, well, ultimately he's the boss. The boss makes the decision.
Exactly, the boss makes the decision.
And I don't want to be the person to contradict the boss.
Because they were afraid of being fired or yelled at or embarrassed, which is very common here between that dynamic. So how did you empower people to not feel afraid of you? Like, you just keep on telling them time and time again?
Keep on telling people. And it was like, look, it's not a test. Like, I felt like people were looking at me like, what's this guy doing? Like, is he trying? And it literally had to be like, look, man, I'm not trying to test you. Like, what I'm saying is if you see something, if you see me making a mistake, let me know. Let me know. Say, Mr. Maxwell, I think we could do this. That's no problem. That I encourage that. That's better than you just blindly following an order, because I certainly don't know everything. So it was just repeating that, and it's giving room for mistakes. I think Nigerian bosses can be so harsh on people who make mistakes that people can be so terrified about making mistakes.
They're so scared.
Yeah. So it was just like letting people understand I make mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes. So nobody's going to be hung for making a mistake. But not contributing, I think that's worse. If you see there's a problem and you don't say anything.
You just looking at me later talking about I do it. I'm going to start looking at you after some time.
Exactly, man. So it was just making people understand that. And now, we've got it right. And I think it's just an ongoing process. And I think that modesty, that level of understanding I don't know everything, you don't know everything, as a returnee, I think it's a great lesson and a very important lesson.
Absolutely. So what made you start African Warriors though? Of all the things that you could have started. This is the first time that I've ever seen like an African sport being promoted like UFC. Like, y'all need to check out his YouTube channel. It's like...
Thank you. African Warriors Fighting Championship, YouTube. At African Warriors FC, Instagram. What made me start it? I've always loved combat sports. Like, I've always loved fighting. Growing up, I did kickboxing. I did karate from a young age. I always loved just combat sports. And I think African Warriors, the birth of African Warriors just synced with there being an amazing opportunity and me feeling like I had the skills to deliver on it. So my professional background's in PR. So I studied politics at uni, then went into corporate PR, working with brands, people, high profile individuals, businesses on raising their profiles and managing their reputations.
Oh my gosh, that works perfectly with African Warriors.
Yeah, right? So after doing that for a while, continuing to do that, I was feeling that pull towards home. So I started increasingly focusing my efforts there on Africa. So businesses who were engaging with Africa, businesses who have an African story to tell, just anything around that. And then, so that synced with my love for combat sports and a huge market opportunity. Combat sports now have just reached a new level of mainstream prominence. The UFC, the largest organization in combat sports, sold for $4 billion.
Whoa! Are you serious?
I swear.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so sold for $4 billion, which at the time was the biggest acquisition in sports history in 2016.
Wow.
So it just feels like this is an area which is blowing up. 550 million fans globally for combat sports. And unlike football or basketball, these sports, the UFC, for example, was born in 1993. So it's like these sports are so relatively new.
I didn't know it was that new.
Yeah, so it's just like there's so much to play for. And initially, I said I'm going to launch a Nigerian UFC. So,
okay, you just literally saw UFC and you wanted to move it to Nigeria.
Yeah, I was just like, exactly, I'm just going to launch.
What made you change that?
And then I got on ground here, right? And I think this is the importance about listening and looking around, right? In that, I'm just going to launch a Nigerian UFC. You know, we have talented athletes, there's plenty of us.
We do.
And we're angry anyway. So like, we're just ready to, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, no, like, we'll just come, like, oh yeah, now just organize boys and we'll just do it. So then it was like, okay, fine. Let's think beyond that. And we got here and it was just like, wait a minute. We can do that. But there's these amazing sports which are steeped in hundreds, if not thousands of years of culture. Dambe, which is so much more than two men just punching each other. It's poetry, it's dance, it's magic, all of these things intertwine with this sport.
Okay.
And it's exciting to watch. Like,
you fell in love with it when you saw it.
Yeah, like, and it's brutal and it's not for everybody. But at the same time, there's so much beauty and I think promise in it. And this sport, which is loved across the North, loved wherever you find Hausa people. And it was just like, wow, like this sport is great. And it's ours. Like, you know what I mean? It's not
homegrown.
It's homegrown and it's something that only we can do. You can launch an MMA organization anywhere. You can launch Dambe organization only within Nigeria. And then we have wrestling, which, as you said, I'm from Igbo, we're both from Abia. And there's a huge culture of wrestling where I'm from. So I always knew about wrestling. Whenever we'd come back for Christmas or New Yam Festival, wrestling would be seen. You know, the biggest men in the village would be there competing.
They're huge.
So I just like, there's so much culture around both of these things.
Yeah.
And nobody else is doing it. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to focus primarily on doing something that we can only do.
Yeah,
It's
I love that.
Yeah, it's not about, and on a business level, it just made more sense because it's like, rather than compete with $1 billion organization like the UFC, we can build our own lane, which can't be compared to anyone. And we've been able to get so much traction out of that because what we do is so unique.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, so now, for example, just a few months ago, we had Africa's first UFC champion, Kamaru Usman, Nigerian Nightmare. He was in Nigeria. And we did some great stuff with him. We took him to one of our camps.
African Warriors.
Yeah, African Warriors.
Yeah.
So imagine that we brought Nigeria's first Africa's first UFC champion.
They must have been so happy to see him.
Like it was mad. It was crazy. So we did a big fight. We showed him Dambe. We just introduced him to the sport.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was just really exciting. And we've just been able to just build, and people are really enjoying what we do. So now we have, I think, almost maybe 20 million views across our platforms. We have a global audience, and initially it was just, this is going to be for Nigeria, for us, by us. But we've seen that it resonates on a global level. People are engaging with the rawness of it. People are engaging with just the unique nature of it. So we have a huge amount of our following, a huge amount of our views are coming from the States. A huge amount of our following, a huge amount of our views are coming from Europe. We signed our first broadcast deal not in Nigeria but in the UK, putting African combat sports for the first time on TV there.
Ooh, congratulations! When did this deal go through?
This was last year, so we're still running. We're on
amazing.
Yanga TV. Check that out. And so it's been a crazy journey. Like, it's taken me to the strangest of places. It's taking me to
You've traveled around Nigeria.
Dangerous places.
Yeah, but that's cool though. You've really seen Nigeria.
But I've loved doing it, and it's not easy, and it's a lot. And sometimes I look, man, I could have just. They're easier businesses to start. There are businesses which have blueprints. I do that, and we go here.
Yeah, there's no blueprint in what you're doing.
There's no blueprint for this, but at the same time, that's the excitement. This isn't just a business. This is the opportunity to establish a sport on a global level and to be the people doing that. You're
a pioneer, and you're bringing out traditional Nigerian sports, and not only are you doing that, you're also lifting up the fighter. I said the warriors, the fighters.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And because you're implementing like health and safety, Abby.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's like exactly that. And thank you for bringing that up. We have these guys who are coming from toughest parts of Nigeria.
Yeah, that's
some of our fighters, if they were not Dambe fighters, they could be the bandits you read about in the news.
But that's normal for any fighter around the world. They usually come from a rougher background.
Exactly.
So
and I just feel like rougher in Nigeria, rougher is a different type of rough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have and when I speak to our guys, you just see how adjacent their lives are to these things. So
to violence.
Yeah, Baya. So one of our main coach. And just talking about getting the buy-in of the community. So Baya is pretty old now, probably into his 60s, right? Mm-hmm. You never know if you look at him. And he's an old Dambe fighter. So he's like a Dambe legend. And now he's just a coach to our fighters. Mm-hmm. But he goes way beyond that. Like he has input across the business just because he knows the community understands the sport so well.
It's so important.
And at one time, we were just sitting down and I was like, Baya, you never talk about your family. And he's like, yeah, one of my first wife, I lost her to Boko Haram. He's actually from Maiduguri, Boko Haram Central.
Yeah.
And so you just think, and I was like, wow. And then there have been so many stories like that. It's not just our job to bring a camera and film fights. It's what we're trying to do is raise everything around these sports and our fighters with it. So as you said, access to healthcare. These guys are prize fighters, right?
Yeah.
They are fighting to put food on the table, and we're trying to raise those standards.
Yeah.
And so
not so dangerous. You're adding some parameters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like we've refined the rule set, for example, for the first time.
I'm sorry, the what?
The rule sets.
Okay.
So the Dambe had a very loose rule set around.
Yeah, you could do anything.
Yeah, and within confines, but it wasn't articulated properly. Mm-hmm. So we've introduced the first rule set, which is now better for the fighters in terms of just more of an understanding of what you're fighting for and what that means. Better for a viewer, so you can follow it better. And then things like health and safety. Dambe can be practiced anywhere, village, town, square, anywhere. And access to healthcare, ambulances, that's very much an afterthought.
Yeah.
So we have an ambulance crew on site at all of our events.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And it's interesting because, again, when we talk about modesty and when we talk about learning from the community you're engaging with, I thought, okay, fine. It's very clear that we need to bring ambulances here. Talk finish. We get doctors, we get ambulances, that's it. And then I was just observing people would get injured, and sometimes they wouldn't go to the ambulance people.
But they would just walk it off?
And I was like, what's going on? And they're like, and again, people are shy, right? People say,
they felt embarrassed.
Yeah, so I now asked, what's up? We'd rather go to the traditional healer. So around any Dambe camp, they have a whole bevy of traditional healers. So you have somebody who specializes in bone setting. So somebody,
really?
Yeah, so imagine that, right? So somebody who's his job is somebody's shoulder gets dislocated, something gets dislocated, he'll pop it back into place. And I remember thinking,
whoa.
Yeah, so we did this thing when we were filming with Vice actually. We had a fight set up, two of our sort of good champions, Dogonaleka and Altanumaru. So they're having this really back and forth fight. And in Dambe, you fight for a house. So you don't just fight for yourself or your gym. Depending on where you're born in the country, you're born into a house. So that house has hundreds of years of history. So before fighters fight, you have musicians who are singing songs like gingering the fighters, and they are talking about that house, the proud house he's representing, what that means, how...
That's amazing!
And that's what I mean about there's so much around it. And it can be terrifying at times. I remember the first time...
Not making a mistake.
Yeah, but I remember even like what they're singing. Like I remember the first time, one of the first times I was watching Dambe, I picked up a bit about Hausa now, but
of course.
At the time I didn't know what the guy was singing. I turned to my friend, I said, what's he saying? He started laughing. He said, they're singing, "The time for killing has come. Don't worry, if you die, we'll take you back to your village and bury you next to your senior house members." Imagine that, like just to say, like, and the fact is that listening to this and they love it, like this is what they like. So
you're like,
yo, like just like, so, but anyway, just my point is that there's years of history of expectation on these fighters, right? So as they're fighting, they fall out of the sand pit, and Dogonaleka dislocates his shoulder.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, call the fight off. Like he can't continue. He needs healthcare ASAP. Ambulance is over there. Take him to the doctor. Finish. They're like, and his like brothers, his house members start arguing with me. Like, no, fight can't finish. I'm like, guy, like look, see your boy now. Like, what do you mean? Like the fight's finished. They're like, no. And then as we're arguing, the bone breaker comes and pops his shoulder back into place, like in full view of everybody. Then he runs back in and continues the fight and wins the fight. And so it was just like, I mean, it was mad. When I look back at it now, it was a great example of listen. There, of course, we are coming in to change things in the right way, but there are things that have been in place here before you came with your fancy accent and ideas about what should be done. And respect those things, because those things have worked. Not all the time. And of course, there are improvements that need to be made.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a great example of respect. And I think it cuts across anything. And it's a story that I look back on that and I always remember why. And it helps illustrate the importance for me.
So now do you integrate those traditional healers in your camp?
Yeah. And it's like ultimately, so we have our own camp now, right? So we have in Enugu in southeast Nigeria, where we have about 40 fighters living, training, fighting. So
wait, is your only camp in Enugu?
No. So we have the Enugu camp, and then we have other camps around the north, Abuja and Kano primarily. Okay. So that just allows us to be within the communities, allows us access to all of the best fighters, and just mean that we have this great network across the country.
You personally built, like you went around
Nigeria.
We
built it. We built that network.
Built it. That's amazing.
Trekked up and down, and I can't take all the credit.
Of course, you and your team.
Great operations team. Emmanuel, who leads that, is literally the guy who gets out in the field. We'll go and seek out one camp here, seek this out, and just build that relationship. So it's just been great for us, and it just talks to doing things in a way that is sustainable and doing things in a way that involves everybody. And it takes time, and it took us time. It took us about 2 years to get to that point. But it's been so good for us, and it's a key part of the business.
That's amazing. What has been your most important lesson that you learned as a returnee?
Most important lesson.
As a returnee building a business in Nigeria, I like that one.
More than anything, do the work yourself. You can't outsource things in Nigeria. You cannot outsource things. And Nigerians are a unique level of proud and just keen to advance. So you can ask the average Nigerian, can you do this? I'm like, yes, I can do it.
They'll always say yes.
I don't think anybody has ever said no.
No.
This one, I know, this one passed me, but I know a guy. It's yes. And so I just think you need to do it yourself, because you can't trust people on the level of people will probably say they can do things when they can't. And of course, we have very skilled people who can do great things, but equally we don't. And then on the level of people don't care. So people won't give your business, your goal, your project, that same level of engagement that you will. And I feel like in Nigeria, that bar is even lower. So people will literally just pick, there have been times when I've asked people to do things and they just haven't done it in a way that I wouldn't expect to happen in the UK, for example. Like if I contract you to do something, you're at least going to pretend you've done it or at least do something around it. But there have been times when people just won't do things and I'm like, why don't you do it? And they don't even bother to give you an excuse. Like, so I just feel like you have to do the work yourself. Like you have to check and double check. Don't outsource things, get it done. And it will take longer, it will take more hard yards. But I guess the flip side of that is you have a unique level of defensibility in your business. You have a unique level of operational understanding.
Yeah, you need that operational understanding or people are going to rip you off.
Exactly. Like we could have taken the easy route and found places they do Dambe and just film. Would have been cheaper and easier. But instead we built our own camp because we understood we need to have the level of access and understanding that only us doing everything can give us. So it's almost like in Nigeria, you have to build your own empire. Like
you kind of have to own the whole value chain.
Exactly.
No one told me that before I moved. Yeah.
That's exactly. You have to own the whole value chain.
Your whole empire.
Yeah. It's not enough to just come in and just pick one part of it.
No, you can't do it at all.
And it's like, well, think about it this way. If you wanted to open a factory in the US, you don't need to think about electricity. No. You know what I mean? Like, I open my factory, the lights are on, I pay my light bill, finish. Nigeria, you need to go and buy your own gen and you need to have a part of your business which is just primarily servicing your electricity needs.
Yeah, you might even build your own fiber optic, whatever it is, yourself, like a whole camp.
Exactly. You might build your whole electric system thing.
Yeah, solar system, whatever.
And that's just a great example of things that you might not necessarily have to pay attention to in different markets. You have to pay attention to in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
You can't depend on anything else. You can't depend on the system. You can't depend on outsiders. And I think that can make you like a bit jaded and a bit like us versus them, but you just have to grind, like, because if you don't do it, nobody will, and nobody cares.
And nobody cares.
Yeah, so nobody cares. Sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? But I think it's the truth. Like, I think it's the honest truth.
I like that. I don't think it sounds harsh. I just think it's realistic advice from an African warrior.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, so how can we help African warriors? Like what, and what I mean by we, I mean my audience, the diaspora, like how can we get involved? Because what you're doing is amazing. Yeah,
I think, look, our key thing right now is we're building awareness. These sports are here, they've been here, and we need as many fans, we need as many people to engage with this. So if you're a sports fan, even if you're not a sports fan, check this out. If you're a fan of culture, there's something here for you. If you're a fan of sport, there's something here for you. So I'd say just check us out. Follow us, Instagram at African Warriors FC, website africanwarriorsfc.com, YouTube African Warriors Fighting Championship. So check us out, please. And I think beyond that, just engage with what we're doing. And I think the next step, something that's really exciting for us is we're about to start fundraising. So our key thing to start with was just validating this, like just letting people know that we're not totally mad. We see something here and we believe in it, and the market has been great to us. We've secured a broadcast deal. We have millions of views around the world. We've really shown that there's something here, and we're about to take that to the next level. Yeah. So I think, those are the two key things. Just watch, engage, like, follow. And if you like what we're doing on a business level, get in touch and we can talk more about that.
Okay, absolutely. I'm going to put all his contact information in the description box below. But yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me and chatting with us and telling us about what the lessons that you learned moving back and telling us about your company, African Warriors.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's such an important platform. I think these conversations are so important. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for engaging and commenting below. Please like and subscribe for more content.